Big dog.
What up, everybody? Welcome to another week of Coffee Hour. My name is Paul Abernathy, your host, as always, here on Coffee Hour. Thanks for joining us, taking the time out of your day, wherever you're at, on the West Coast, here on the East Coast, where I am, wherever you're at. Thanks for taking the time. I know your time is very valuable, so again, we appreciate it. And hopefully, we can bring you some education today. Today, we are going to be talking about our thermal electrician. It's a program I've been working on now for probably 8 months, trying to hone it down to get it to where it needs to be. We'll talk a little bit about that today. We'll also talk, anything you want to talk about electrical. I answer questions as well, and we'll go take a look. Today, we're going to also be looking at NFPA 70B as it pertains to thermal imaging and maintenance and things like that. And we'll just talk about all general topics. So um, today we're kind of going to go all over the place with it. So feel free to ask your questions however you choose to ask them, and I will do my best to try to answer them on any topic that you want to talk about on today's episode. Next week, let me just give you a heads up. Next week, we will be doing dwelling calculations. It's been a while since we've done some dwelling calcs. So next week, we'll be doing an episode will be dedicated to single family dwelling. And more importantly, we're going to be kind of looking at it from a 2023 NEC, but also kind of introducing any 2026 stuff that may be involved. Okay. So that's what we got going on next week. So make sure you bookmark next week because we're going to get back into doing some calculations. Okay. Save. So there you go. All right. Let's see what do we got going on here. So I'm having trouble seeing the sizing of the screens here. So let me jump up a little bit so I can see what we got going on. So also, as always, I live vicariously through you folks. Again, you know that you can send me questions at paulabernathy.com, or you can go to our website, which is fasttracksystem.com. And in the navigation, you will see where it says Ask Paul. So there's a feature there where you can ask me anything you want, like code questions and things like that. Make sure you're very specific on the code cycle that you're interested in when you ask it, because it can change depending on what cycle that you're dealing with. So I'm going to make sure I give you the best opportunity for that to be able to answer more accurately depending on where you're at, like that. I do get an awful fair amount of questions, people asking me about testing in their area. I don't know a lot about the testing process for your state specifically. So some people call me and say, "Well, what I want to become an electrician in Florida." I'm not familiar with the process of down there. I can only prepare you for an electrical exam. And I don't prepare people for contractors exams. So keep that in mind. I only focus on the electrician part. So we don't teach OSHA. I don't teach, our company does not teach the NFPA 72, any of that, even though we have some videos over on Fast Tracks 2 for fire alarm. I typically don't get into that. So just make sure you're aware of that when you call the office, that we're not we can't tell you what PSI does and their processes in Alabama. That's your responsibility to contact your licensing center. Use TradeHog to search for it, who you might contact, or something like that, or some other AI tool. And that's where you're going to get that information. I'm not going to have that information. I don't go researching it to try to do that. Okay, just so you're aware of that. I get that quite a bit. So do some shout outs real quick this morning before we get into it. What's up, Tim? Glad to have you here. Thanks for joining us. Paul, welcome. Glad to have you here, my friend, joining us the show as always. David, our CMECP from down in the Florida area. Glad to have you here, David. Good morning. Frank, glad to have you here, my friend. I noticed that it does not do names anymore, although Rob's, it does the name, but I guess that's because he's on YouTube. So I guess whatever, it doesn't let you. I guess everything is at symbol now or something. I don't know. Let's see here. The Rob. Well, Rob's over on Fast Tracks Tube, and it lets you do it. So there you go, Rob. Thanks for being here. Glad to have you here. Useful's showing us all how to do the hashtag win. Yes, we're doing the drawings at the end of December now. We combined quarter 3 and we're combining it into quarter 4. So we can do just one big giveaway. So that's available. What's up, Mike from Outdoors? Welcome. Glad to have you here, my friend. Alex, glad to have you. Let's see. Rob says next week, Thursday, he's testing for his residential electrical license. Okay. So there we go. We're going to thoughts and prayers are with you. We know you got this. Okay. We know you got it. All sending you positive vibes. Okay. Also, I will announce that in our grounding and bonding course on our website, we have now, took us a little while, but we have added the Fast Tracks Interact feature so that, again, you can ask us questions while you're in your course. It's pretty popular if people like talk, being able to go into your course. In the lower right, you have this looks like a little chat symbol or a little cloud. You click on it and you can type your question. You can attach an image, a screenshot, whatever. A little harder to maneuver on a mobile device, but it's still there. But that's available. So check that out. So again, do that type. So if you have anything that you want to do it for that, feel free to do that. You said grounding bonding on a panel fed by a transformer, separate derived neutrals and grounding and bonding, and then for anything. It's a very broad question, usual. So again, so in a transformer is a separately derived system. So if you're talking from the secondary of the transformer to the panel, right? You're going to need what's called a supply side bonding jumper, but you could bond it either in the transformer. The case to neutral connection is in the transformer. That's called a system bonding jumper, or it can be done at the actual panel. Typically not both. Okay. So remember in how you make these connections, but it depends on your setup. Typically, you're going to have a system bonding jumper inside of the actual transformer, and you have that strap that's going to connect XO over to frame. And so then when you go up to the actual panel, you're going to have a supply side bonding jumper typically, which could be a metal raceway like EMT or rigid if you do that. Most people don't. So you're going to have a separate supply side, okay? So apply side bonding jumper in the transformer, and then you're going to have a bonding jumper that goes up, okay, to the actual panel. That is isolated. It's not going to be connected to the neutral on that side, okay? So it's going to be floating. So think of it in that scenario when your system bonding jumper is installed in the transformer, and the bonding jumper and everything that you run up to your panel is going to be separated just like you would do a remote distribution panel. Keep it simple, okay? Keep that concept simple, okay? That's how you would do that. And we call that the derived conductors because it's being derived from the secondary of the transformer, okay? So anyway, hopefully that answers your question on that. Again, we covered that in our grounding and bonding course. And the beautiful thing about our grounding and bonding course is that it doesn't expire. So once it's on your phone or you have it, you can always go back to it and look at the illustrations and the graphics and explanations. And so it becomes a resource in your pocket. So it's a great investment for people out in the field because you never know when you may need to go back to it quickly. And it's logically flowing, right? So it flows logically through the code, right? Okay, whether or not you're trying to deal with the bonding of a single separately derived system or multiple separately derived systems, and you're in 250, it's going to take you through all of that. So it just makes it a little bit easier for you to be able to maneuver, right? Red Dogs in the house.
Woo, 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 woo. Big dog.
Let's see here. Got good morning, Tennessee electrician Jonathan. Thanks for joining us. Santana's in the house. Good morning. Glad to have you here. Let's see. All is well, my friend. All is well. Let's see here. Volume up. My volume's up, so you might want to turn your volume up. I didn't know that my volume was down. Let's see. I can double check it. I can double check it and see if my audio is low. Let's see here. Let me see here. Let me see here if there's any way I can turn it up any higher. I'm not sure. Hold on. Let me see. Let me see. Let me see. I don't know that I didn't know that I was low. All right. Let's see here. Microphone. Let's turn this up a little bit. How about that? Does that work? Is that a little bit better? Is that better? Does that bring a little bit more oomph to it? It's not too loud, not too overmodulated. All right. Didn't know I adjusted that. Okay. You got it. Let's see what else we got. Price. Not sure what you mean by price, but if you go to our website, fasttracksystem.com, there's the address right there. Okay. And it'll show you whatever course or program you're looking for. And the prices are all on the website. I have a bunch of different stuff, so I don't know which price, what you're looking for. What's up, Manny? Glad to have you here, my friend. Glad to have you here in the house. So Mike, let me know, or Alex, let me know if that volume adjustment helped any. Let's see. Good morning, Terrence. Glad to have you here, my friend. Welcome this morning. Let's see here. What do we got here? All right, so you want to take today as a chance to ask all these questions here. So to bond the transformer, don't bond the disconnect. Again, it seems like you're confused. Transformers have a primary side disconnect that's going to be supplied from the panel to that disconnect, right? You treat that as you would anything else. You don't do case to neutral connections on anything downstream of the service. That disconnect for the transformer is on the primary side. That's being supplied by the service or feeder equipment. There's a separation there. Your equipment grounds do not connect to your neutrals, okay? So that is done as normal. Once you get to the transformer, then it's different because it's a separately derived system. Now you have to determine whether you put a system bonding jumper in the transformer, secondary side, or you're going to do it at the panel. Typically not both, okay? And so if you're doing it in the transformer, all you're doing is taking your neutrals and your hot conductors up to your panel, and you're taking a separate bonding conductor that's going up, that's going to connect And that's where all the equipment grounds are going to connect to on the load side of that transformer or in that panel. Okay. Your disconnects on the primary side. You'd never have an improper case to neutral. Okay. On that side. Okay. 250.25. That's the primary side. Okay. Let's see here. What do we got here? Okay. Good deal. Guyana? Ghana? Good morning. Glad to have you here. Cleveland. Been a minute. We're glad to have you here, my friend. Thanks for joining us. Follow us on the stream. Let's see. Now it's better. Okay. Good deal. All right. Good morning, John. Glad to have you here. Welcome. Okay. Let's talk a little bit today. Again, amazing sound. Okay. That's an amazing sound. Okay. Yeah. I don't know how I turned it down, but glad we got that sorted out. Okay. So first of all, let me give you a little bit of background because it is coffee hour. In today's topic, we're going to talk about something that we're launching called Thermal Electrician. And what is it? First of all, there is thermography training available. It is. It's usually broken down into multiple levels: a level 1, level 2, level 3. Great training. There's some great companies out there that teach this thermal training. The deal with most of that is they spend an awful lot of time talking about the other aspects of it. Now, we can get into, in our course, we're going to get into things like emissivity. We're going to talk about how it's you start with what's called a black box and what it is, a perfect one, whereas everything else has a lower emissivity, and that's going to affect your temperature readings. We'll cover all that in our training. But they get into things that really aren't driven specifically to electrical. And so when and I've been doing thermal imaging for quite a while before as a consultant, and we said, look, we need something that is more geared just to electricians. And also, what I started seeing was that when electricians start doing thermal imaging, they call out things that maybe are not an issue, and they call it out as an issue. So, what we wanted to do was put together a very definitive course that never ends. In other words, we continually add to it perpetually that will teach you not only how to recognize things, how to do the temperature differentials between certain values in order to come up with a go, no go scenario, how to create what's called pre inspection and post inspection submission reports for companies for ongoing maintenance and all this kind of stuff. And we also wanted to incorporate how NFPA 70B comes in chapter 7 or section 7 when it comes to thermal imaging, how that gets wrapped into the day in and day out application of an electrician. And so that's what we set out to create. Um, Now, for a lot of electricians, they're thinking, well, if I do residential work, what do I need to care about thermal imaging? Because even NFPA 70B says that you need to have at least 40% loading in order to get any reasonable values. Um, Ideally, we want things running at normal rates. So usually we will train that the thermal technician or the thermal electrician will actually turn on things during their inspection, like the ovens and things like that, in order for big appliances. They'll turn these things on and take readings as part of a process. But really, we're looking for those hidden things. Sometimes a poor connection, it doesn't have to be a massive load on a poor connection for it to be generating I squared R heat. That can be detected by thermal camera if you know what you're looking for. But we also will get into in our program, we wanted to develop something that is for electricians to be able to offer as a service, standalone, but also as an add-on service for electricians that are out there doing service calls and they're like, look, would you like us to do a thermal inspection, some key components, and look for any potential issues that may be down the road? But we also created a program to also geared towards things like data centers, which have to be up and running. And that's a whole separate market for a thermal electrician who's trained in it to understand the nuances when it comes to data center operation. And the electricians that work in these data centers need to understand that you can head off possible problems down the road by understanding the concepts of thermal imaging and understanding that it's not just taking a thermal camera like this or any other ones that are available and simply taking a shot of something and and being able to interpret that image so that you don't do what's called the cry wolf syndrome. And what's the difference between a poor connection, a weak connection versus an improperly sized conductor or an overloaded breaker? What's the manufacturer tolerances of their breakers? We try to give you all this stuff so that you have it. That's what a thermal electrician program is going to be doing. Okay. So again, I'm still answering any electrical questions you want. I'm just trying to tell you what the process is on why we came up with this program and why we're launching this program in January. Um, Most people are very aware of us producing the program for energy experts, and that program is still in development because we have a bit of a hiccup on that when it comes to the way that we want to drive that program. But in that program, thermal imaging became more of a pull out separate certification program through our company, the corporation, that we wanted to develop our own types of protocols, how you address it, what kind of PPE you need for certain types of things so that you're prepared. And yeah, even though thermal imaging is a non destructive, non contact type of test, obviously you're going to have to do readings while things are energized. So you're going to have to be aware of 70E, you're going to have to be aware of PPE, certain types of things. So our course is going to go over that. And as we develop it, we're adding even more. I think we're at 19 or 20 units right now. And we're continually to add more and more units to it. But we even teach you how to sell it, how to market it, how to promote it, all those types of things as well. So, so that's what the kind of the program, the concept of it. Now, the program is going to also be extensive in the fact that you're going to have to do an essay at the end and submit an evaluation and explain the readings you're getting on a thermal camera. Uh, One of the questions that people ask about our program is, are you required to buy thermal imaging cameras that we provide? Absolutely not. There's some really, really nice thermal imaging cameras out there that you can get if you want to add this to your company or if you want to do this standalone. Um, we just will not teach you how to do the building envelope. We're not going to teach you how to look for wet spots, cold spots in the walls. That is not our thing. Okay. That is a total thermography course. That is something totally different. We are so focused on what the electrician has to provide. One of the big things that we're going to be doing with this is create our own mobile app that is going to allow you to do reports, take pictures in the field, store it, whatever, be able to do all this, and have a an app for it where everything is in the app that you can work with it, and that's what we're working on right now as well. So we have to hopefully get that done, at least the app part done. But the course is done. And the only thing that's difference between the current course that's available on our website and the certification is in the certification, there's going to be testing, right? And you have to pass the tests, much like our CMECPs do when they do their CMECP program. So right now you can get the thermal course from our website. You can order a camera from us if you want, or use your own. The only caveat I'd recommend, if you're going to use a thermal imaging camera, it at least needs to be, at least the dimensions on it screen as far as the resolution is 120 by 120 minimum. If you can get a 240 by 240, that's great. That's about the what we would recommend, or an enhanced 240 by 240 pixel. We recommend that at least for electrical. Now, if you're going to get into building envelopes and get really detailed, then you probably want to go with something a little more expensive that's going to give you better optics. But you don't need that for electrical. Okay? So again, you don't. It doesn't have to break the bank to do this. Um, so anyway, that's the program that we're going to be offering, and I'm going to show you a little bit of that today. Some of the program, some of the course stuff, or the material, or how you get to it. I'll show you that. But also going to show you for maintenance folks. So in a maintenance program in any facility that you're working in, you really should have a thermal imaging program as well, whereas on a monthly basis that you check the motors, that you put what we call emissivity tabs on it. And we talk about that in our program on this is the ability for you to be able to take readings from objects that may have a high reflective surface, because you're not going to get accurate readings from a reflective surface. And emissivity is, if you think of emissivity, is think of a black surface, we call it a black box, which the emissivity is based on 0 to 1. And you have factors depending on the reflectiveness of the surface through this spectrum from 0 to 1, black box being 1. It means the energy that it releases, the radiation energy that you're measuring with a infrared camera in the infrared spectrum, is at perfect. It is a perfect emitter, and you're detecting that. Whereas if you're lower on the scale, like a shiny steel or a shiny copper or a shiny aluminum, the emissivity value drops. And so, in order to what you're reading is not an accurate temperature. But what we do in a program is people get concerned about their readings, and you can get false readings, and we'll explain all that. And it might be as different as changing your angle of how you're reading it and not going beyond the 45. And I explained this in one lesson, whereas it's like looking in a mirror. When you're looking in a mirror, that reflection is basically the same as the reflectivity, and it's going to cause problems in your thermal imaging camera. In fact, it's going to actually pick up your radiated body heat or your radiated thermal signature from it, and it can mess up your readings. So if you just go 45 degrees or to the point that you just disappear out of the mirror, if you get my concept, the moment you just disappear out of the mirror, the moment you disappear, now you're going to get a more accurate reading. And you try it from both sides in order, and you take the readings from all of those. And you're interesting in some of the lessons that we're going to have on some videos that we're doing. Just changing your position can change the temperature. Another thing is, it's so important for you to understand what the ambient temperature is where you're testing, understanding emissivity on the surface that you're testing, the distance that you're testing, all those type of things. And when it comes to distance, the problem with that is that now you get into electrical equipment, and that distance creates a situation where you get into these different arc fields that can cause problems. So you need to make sure that you understand what you're working on, that type of thing. Okay, so NFPA 70E is important to understand those levels of protection. It's not brain surgery. Okay, it's a pretty simple document in order for us to do thermal imaging. That's those type of things. And based on your camera, you can get some decent distances out of it, but you have to make some adjustments. Now, a lot of people, they take thermal imaging programs, they freak out when they realize that they'll say, well, you can get in a lot of trouble if you state this and that, and they shut down an entire system because of stuff you say. Look, I'm going to explain to you that a lot of people are scaring you because they're not training you. When I see something and it's glowing bright, like almost like just a bright yellow, and it looks like this temperature is off the scale, you have to be able to look at it and say, well, I understand why that's happening, and I have to make the adjustment. And I don't want to cry wolf. But if I look at a conductor at a termination, then instead of doing a reading on the lug, which depending on whether maybe an oxidized lug, maybe it's maybe you put what we call a black box tab on it, which we explain how to do that. We never want to do that while it's live. Okay, but there's ability for them to do a maintenance program when they put something in, if they can do that. And be aware that you want to get the most accurate reading as you can. But if I'm measuring a conductor, rather than measure at the termination, remember that the heat's transmitted through the conductor, so I might move down to the insulation. And if I go to the insulation, I can get probably a much more accurate reading than I may get on the lug itself, right? And really, when I tell electricians that I'm training them for this type of stuff, I also make it aware that, you know what, you don't have to be 100% accurate on the temperature. What you're looking for is the delta T. You're looking at the temperature delta between other mutual points. Let me give you an example. So I could go into a job, and maybe my job is to check the motors and to check the breakers. They're three-phase motors. And so I'm going and checking the motors. I'm checking the conductors at the motors. I'm checking on it. I'm doing everything I can try to do on this motor in order to get temperatures. On this motor, I may put some black box dots at certain points on the motor, which are basically just round PVC, like electrical tape. You could just put electrical tape on these motors if you can get to it. Ideally, this is done during shutdown. Um, but it depends on the surface material. But I'm also doing this in the panel. And if I get back to the panel, for example, I'm looking at a panel, I'm looking at a three-phase breaker, and I'm noticing that one leg is much hotter than the other legs. Now, if it's just a hot spot near the termination, and then the conductor itself drops down to fairly normal compared to all of the legs or all the phases, then it's telling me there's something going on there. It could be a hot spot or loose connection. If the temperature is consistent down the conductor, then that's just loading. But how come if one is much higher than the other mutual ones, we know that it's a motor, so it's supposed to be a balanced three-phase load, then that could tell us that there's possibly something going on in the motor windings. There could be something going on with that winding for that phase. And so we have to investigate it a little more, and we may defer it to an electrician to investigate that. But also, it's so important that a lot of people that do this thermal imaging, they are not electricians. And so, why is it a benefit for you to be an electrician? Because as an electrician, what I'm going to do is I'm immediately, you've already guessed it. I know some of you are thinking this. I'm just going to throw an amp probe and I'm going to clip it over that one phase and I'm going to see what the amp draw is on that, okay, and compared to the other phases, right? So, there's a process that you go through without just crying wolf. There's also a situation where people are really trying to scan things with a thermal camera and they don't understand that it's not like TV. Whereas you see these TV show where they do a thermal and it's looking through the walls of the building and it sees target. It doesn't work like that. So thermal imaging does not penetrate through the walls, okay, like you see on TV. Okay. So we can't go to a panel because we're measuring the surface. Now, we can't scan a panel without taking the cover, right? Um, but there's certain things that we can do. For example, the emissivity rating that you're going to put in your camera, which is always going to change depending on the surface that you're using. And with these cameras, it's real easy. Just click, click, click. You do it on the go. Most cameras are going to be that way. Um, you need to understand what is the emissivity level that we're going to set. For example, electrical tape is going to be like 0.92 to 0.95. Is very high emissivity, not black body, like a black body being one. No, but it's very close. Um, Whereas copper might be a 0.65 if it's oxidized copper, and it may even be lower. So it may not give you a good reading to try to measure the copper, especially not straight on if it's polished, because then it's going to get you a reflection. You need to try to get it at an angle. But even then, it's not going to be the same temperature. But my point is, in electrical, a lot of times when something is wrong, it doesn't mean that you have to be perfect, right? Now, we teach you to use two different sources to make sure you're calibrated right. It's your emissivities right versus this, like, So where we might use this as a spot check, and this is a two zone, a 2 dot spot check. We recommend a two zone, but one's fine. But that only measures a spot. This is going to be something you move around. And so you're trying to confirm. And you know what? You can play with that in an exercise using the emissivity values to see how it affects the temperature that you're reading, that you're getting here. You're not actually reading temperature. You're reading the values that's being calculated through the device. Okay, it's taking from this infrared wave and calculating it and giving you an apparent temperature onto the device. Um, so it's so important to realize that in electrical, we're actually looking for the effects of the heat more. Like, is it carrying down the conductor or all the conductors? Is the overcurrent device running hotter than the manufacturer's recommendations? That type of thing. We talk about that in the course, and that the manufacturers typically 60 degrees C under operation is what you expect typically is the maximum threshold for an overcurrent protected device. But again, it can vary, and so we have an ongoing discussion on this. Also, in our new portal, we're going to be adding a separate forum, and I don't know if Jeff already has or not, but a separate forum just for our thermal electricians to go in and be able to share information, especially if they're on a project, share images, and get some continuing education type of thing for that. So we're really getting into this understanding, because the problem is too many people are grabbing these things and they're using them and they're crying wolf, and it's really affecting the industry because there's a lot of things that will look hot, and it's really still working within its normal operation, right? Okay, so it's what is it? PDX. What it says body heat reads better. Hide it from the wife. She will think I'm hot after 20 years of marriage. Yeah. Yeah. It will read body heat areas that give off more body heat, like head. Interesting is the skin is really close to black body values, right? And it's really close to one because it's not reflective. Again, different areas of the body may have a sheen to it. It may be different readings, but same thing. So we're going to be offering, and you can get them yourself, little black dots, okay, in two different sizes that you can, if you're doing an application in a building and you're installing a new motor, you're installing a new system, that you will put these dots, these things on the actual breakers. You will put it on the lug, or you will wrap it at the lug, or you make sure, you don't not necessarily have to get the lug. We can get the conductor, but we don't want to measure the copper. We don't want to measure the aluminum. We want to try to get something with a high emissivity value, like insulation. Insulation on a conductor is really more like 0.95 ish when it comes to the emissivity value. Okay. But we'll go over all those things so that you can have a better chance. But there is a post in a pre and a post process that you can follow. And data centers should really be following a pre and post process, because they're I can tell you from the wire and cable industry, they are very anal about the installations and their terminations and how much copper showing or how much aluminum showing, or they're very anal about it. But they really need to have a thermal program in place so that they can actually monitor all these things, because terminations, we don't want the system to go down and things can happen. So if you put one of these pre-inspection or pre-plans in place in these data centers, it's going to make it a little easier to do monthly thermal checking, because heat can be an issue. You have conductor insulation breakdown that can take place. And so one of the things that we teach when it comes to that for the data center applications, or motors and maintenance and industrial, it doesn't matter, but is the process of how you go through it. There's a specific process and how you report it. And so we have our own report documents that are going to be available through the mobile app, but they'll also be available on the website. By the way, the website, once it's finished and launched, and it's not going to be ready until the first of the year. Right now, if you go to Thermal Electrician, you're going to go to our thermal imaging course. But once that's done, on our website, there will be an area where you can actually get these thermal imaging. If you're a member, you can actually get the forms for pre-inspection, post-inspection, a maintenance program, step by step, and how to have a maintenance procedure, the proper PPE. So we're going to make it so easy that you just follow it. And also, I don't know if I didn't announce this probably anywhere. We're going to be creating cards that are going to go in a special packet that the thermal electrician can have, and everything gives you the recommended emissivity, all the different recommendations on a card, so that be both sides, different ones on different sides. So if you're in the field and you're like, okay, the ambient temperature is this is what I do, this is what I set my settings at, emissivity, this is what it is here. and they're going to be something that you can just have in your pocket and pull out. So we're going to have a whole set of these different guides that are specifically for the field application. Okay. Formulas, easy, simple example with a fill in the blank formula. So you don't say, well, what all this damn formulas mean? Well, we're going to make it easy. You're just going to punch in certain things where necessary. And so we want to make it as easy as possible for folks to add this to whatever you already do. If you're a maintenance electrician, get your company to put this into the program, get them to train you. Now, why would you come to us? Why would you get certified through our thermal electrician program than go to a thermography program, which is level 1, level 2, level 3? One thing is, the difference is we're not going to be touching these other things that are unnecessary to the electrician. We're not going to be talking about how to tell the differences from the building envelope. I don't care about that. You may care. I don't care. And usually when I create a program, it's about what I care. Okay. If you want to become a total thermographer, then highly recommend there's courses out there, level 1, level 2, level 3. Always education is key. Always. Our program is going to be very much about what the electrician, because you have to remember something. If you go into thermography, you don't have a background in it. You have a background as an electrician. Okay. Right. So as an electrician, you're bringing that level of expertise. You understand current. You understand loading. You understand terminations. You understand the importance of torquing. You understand these things. Now you're adding a layer on it of thermal imaging. And my goal is to make it so that thermal imaging isn't something that you're selling that is BS. It has to be quantifiable. And that's what we're trying to sell. Now, it can be an add-on sale to a service call, or it can be a standalone business. It can be a maintenance program that you sell to companies. You could be in a company. You could be doing motors. Okay. It's a way to do it, the program. Now, there's many other uses for thermal imaging, and you can get into that. We're not focused on that. Okay. So real quick, I want you to see what is in NFPA 70B, which is very much becoming a standard that people turn to. 7.4 talks about infrared thermography. It says 741 says infrared thermography shall be used. It's not, it says it shall be used. This is part of a maintenance program, ongoing maintenance program. Okay. Most places will adopt a 70B as part of their maintenance program. It says shall be used when required to verify temperature differences. Okay. That's your delta T of the following. Number one, similar electrical components under similar loading. Okay. So this is an example where you're going to be taking readings, and I might see 3 conductors, right? And one is totally giving off a lot more than its mutual components. Maybe it's a 3-phase system. It's supposed to be balanced. So we're measuring 3 different temperatures, 3 different conductors close to the termination. We're looking to see whether the heat is being transferred down the conductor. And if that's the case, it could be that you have a system that is an imbalanced load. And that could be a problem on whatever if it's supposed to be a balanced system, that tells you something's wrong, possibly with the motor, whatever the equipment is. But it could be a multi-wire branch circuit where one of the legs is just pulling more current than the other. So you have to be careful that you're not creating a false alarm scenario and just saying, oh, this looks bad. I put this on a report. It's bound to fail. That may not be the case. Okay. And so we don't want you to cry wolf. But in a lot of times, what we teach is looking for things that are in there that are under similar conditions, similar loading, and that's what you're looking for. And you're trying to compare it in order to see what the temperature difference is. And again, I can tell you right now, in a lot of cases on a lug, if I measure near the lug and it's right at the end where maybe we can get a better reading on the insulation, and I have a temperature that it's 6, 7, or even 8 degrees higher than just a couple inches away, that tells me there's something possibly wrong with that lug. Whereas I look at the other mutual conductors on that breaker, let's say, and they don't have the same temperature difference. And it means that now Doesn't mean it's imminent failure because we want to record that. And sometimes you see this bright color and you think, oh my God, it's going to fail, only to look at the temperature and realize that it's nowhere near a temperature that would exceed the insulation of the conductor or the overcurrent device. And it's under normal loading. So anybody can take a camera and just shine it on something. I think the biggest thing is not the equipment, it's the training. And so we're focusing more on the training aspect of it. Although we have a camera we recommend as the bare minimum that has all the bells and whistles that you need, there are many. FLIR makes great thermal imaging cameras. Okay. So if you want to spend that money for it, if you want to do more than just electrical, let's say, then building envelope, if that's what you want to get into, then you may invest in a better camera. But when it comes to electrical, bare minimum is a 240 by 240. 120 by 120 you can get away, but if you can enhance it to a 240 by 240, that's better. Anything that's a better resolution than that, it's going to be a little bit better, but not necessary for electrical. Okay, just say it. Don't want to freak anybody out. Okay, so the other thing is comparison between electrical components and the ambient air temperatures. So a lot of times in our program, we also is where the application of looking at, you have to put in the ambient temperature. So in ours, the first thing that we train people to do is know what the ambient temperature is right there where you're working. Why is that important? Well, the software is going to calculate the fact that y'all heard me talk about conductor ampacity and you have ambient temperatures. The ambient temperature can already raise the level of the product you're testing just because of the ambient where it's at. So when we're taking readings, the computer in here, the processor has to take those things into consideration when it's spitting you back some numbers, right? And so all those type of things. And in our program, we show you how that's calculated out so that you just don't cry wolf and really go and start causing problems where there is no problem. But the beautiful thing about it is if there's a hot spot or there's a breaker that's overheating, if there's an equipment that looks like, it's pretty easy to identify it. The hard part is to translate it to the customer. What level of urgency is it? And that's what I think that we really spend a lot of time doing that. Now, 7.4.2 says all accessible and necessary covers shall be removed. That is so critical. There is people out there, I see videos online with people actually doing thermal testing and they don't even remove the cover of the equipment. You're an electrician. So the problem with a lot of things like home inspectors, which we need in this industry, but other people that just go straight into thermal imaging that may not have an electrical background don't understand the safety that's necessary when working around live equipment. And the only way that I'm going to get an accurate reading, as it says right here, is to remove any covers so I can see what's going on. Okay. So that's going to vary. If I've got a motor that's inside of a piece of equipment, I have to get to that motor. I may have to move covers, components to see the motor in order to be able to take some readings. It is what it is. Right. So again, thermal imaging, a misconception. I guess TV has done that. You can't see through things. Okay. So you have to get it so that you're putting your camera right on the equipment. Okay. It says it says all accessible and necessary covers shall be removed prior to infrared thermography inspection to provide a clear line of sight to the equipment being scanned. Absolutely. Temperature differences between the area of concern and the reference area shall be documented. So basically what that means, and you know what? In our course, and when you do reporting, you want to make sure you follow protocols that are in NFPA 70B. And we are also going to give you additional protocols that you follow so that you cross all your T's and dot all your I's. We want to keep you out of trouble. So when something gets to a certain threshold, we're going to make a recommendation that you pull out your clamp on amp probe. and you're going to clamp it on the suspected conductor if that's the case. There's certain things that you're going to do. We might require that you do a spot check to back up your thermal imaging camera, and we're going to bring it to your attention by little call outs. Why? Because again, it's all about accuracy, and you're going to record these things, right? And so documentation is key. Okay. So a lot of people think that you have to be a level 3 thermographer. No, when it comes to electricians, you're already a licensed electrician. You understand heat, you understand thermal, you understand ampacity, you understand terminations, conductivity, conductors, ratings, listings. You are the definitive expert. All we're doing is taking that level of expertise and we're building on top of that and showing you how to properly use thermal imaging in your day-to-day course of business, whether it's simple service calls. And a lot of people think, well, residential, I don't have a need for one of these in residential. I encourage you to go read the blog that we launched yesterday over on fasttracksystem.com. Go to the blogs, or you can get it from your mobile app. Go read the blog, and you'll see that that is not true. Okay. Sometimes arcing doesn't take a whole lot of load, where over time, the temperature builds up to this arcing, and it could be just as an appliance. You'd be surprised how many appliances, how many things in your home are plugged in that are drawing current that you had no idea. And if you ever want to know, then you need to install an energy monitor on your house like I have, and I can see what things are pulling current when I did not have any idea they were. Okay. And that slow current draw over a poor connection or a degraded connection or an oxidized connection can slowly build up heat over time and send you a signature that you might look at it and clamp your amp probe on something and go, that's very little current. Why is this running so hot compared to other mutual devices? And it's going to spawn further investigation. Well, guess what? Who do you think can do the investigation? I don't want thermal imaging experts to do this. I want electricians to do this. So if you're a thermal imaging, you're a certified thermal electrician, and you're an electrician to boot, you are just the person to solve this problem, not defer it onto somebody else. Okay. So there's different levels of it, but I just want to kind of touch on it. Okay. So next, infrared thermal inspections shall be performed at normal circuit loading. Okay. We're not overloading. We're not trying to overload. We're not trying to create a condition under normal loading. Now, normal loading is something where you just simply turn the equipment on as its expected loading output. Okay. But there are some applications where you can't get normal loading for whatever reason. Well, if that is not possible, and it should be, but if you can't, then what you need to do is you need to increase it to at least 40% of the circuit's loading. Now, there's tricks that you can do this. If I'm doing a thermal scan of a panel and I have one of those poor connections and I have what's called what I call an errant load, and an errant load is creating a hot spot or a heat signature on something that I measure with an amp probe that seems pretty low. Maybe it's a bedroom circuit. Maybe there's stuff that's plugged into the circuit. So what I might do is I might go and plug a hair dryer, a heating element, a ceramic heater, or whatever into that circuit and continue on my stuff. Let it run on that circuit for about 5 minutes. Okay. Then I reinvestigate that termination and I documented the heat before and after and see what changes in that loading. What temperature values is it rising to now under load? Because it had something that was an elevated, slightly elevated temperature over its mutual breakers or mutual conductors. It had a slight elevation that kind of drew my eye, but it wasn't loading under normal conditions, and it wasn't loaded up to 40% of its normal circuit loading, or some thereabouts. And so I'm looking at it going, okay, I want to investigate this. So that's what I would do. Okay. And there's some electricians out there that create what we call a hot box that they can use this. It look fancy. You can create your own with with elements in it or whatever you want to do. It's like a heater. You can create one and be all fancy if you want, but basically it's to plug it in. It's just a hair dryer would work fine. Okay, and you plug it in, and in that scenario, what happens is you now can test that circuit. Um, but there's ways to do it because you don't want to run around and do this in every circuit. Um, you do it when there's suspect, and suspect can be some little subtle value. And we'll do that in some training that I talk about looking for subtle values and how you would do this. And we'll show an example how I'll take a circuit and I'll go and I'll put a hair dryer on it. Then we'll come back, we'll wait 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then we'll come and read it and I will show you what's going on. Those type of things. We're going to do that in some of that training stuff. Anyway, okay. All right, so that takes us to the next one, 7.4.5. It says where normal circuit loading is not feasible, circuit loading of not less than 40% of the normal circuit load shall be performed. Means we're going to have to load it in some way. Now, I'm telling you right now, when it depends on the situation you're in. In a residential scenario, we have tricks that we can do if something is suspect. Okay, we could turn the range on, we do different things, but really what we're looking for is things that are suspect. Right, and again, I squared R heat, you can have a low amount of current squared, and the resistance being the poor connection that can generate a spot that over time the heat builds up even when you don't have a high load. And that's the kind of things that we're looking for. Okay. And then again, 7.4.6, it says circuit loading characteristics shall be documented and retained for future reference. Okay, so this is why you're producing a report for the client. If you're in maintenance, preventative maintenance, this is an ongoing report. Our hope is to get this in an app so that you can keep everything stored on your phone in an app, that type of thing. Now, I have a NAS system, so I store all of my stuff in my app, but then I save it down on my NAS system, that type of thing. So there's many ways to do that. I recommend everybody get a NAS or store it in the cloud if you want to use Google Cloud or whatever, Box or whatever it is. But that's where you would keep all your clients' data for storage. If you're doing maintenance, you keep it at the facility, those type of things. Now, let's look a little bit at the website here. So here's the website. First of all, the course is located under courses, and you can see it right here. Okay, it's thermal imaging course. I'll click on it. And currently the course is $299. Okay, this is not a certification program right now. This is just a course to train you. Okay, if you want to do it, there it is. Okay, and you also can go to our camera. We sell the camera as well, but you don't have to get our camera. You can get anybody's camera you want. Just try to get at least 240 by 240 or 120 by 120 enhanced to 240 by 240. Some of the lower ones are 80 by 60s and things. That's really, you can get away with it, but it's not the best. Okay. You also don't need to spend $1,000 for a thermal imaging camera and get a good one. Get a good one. A couple $100, you can get a really nice one. Ours is a 179, but you can get any different. There's different prices out there. Okay, so this is the course. Now, when we do the certification program, that'll be a whole different course on here for certification. And our certification course will have an option to include a camera or not. Okay, so if you have your own, that type of thing. Hold on, let me get this before I lose TikTok. And we're going to train you how to add this into your normal electrical contracting business, how to add it as an ancillary service, a standalone service, kind of like an inspection service. But we're going to train you how to go in companies and add a third-party maintenance program to a company, get into data centers, things like that. We're going to talk about all that. And we're also going to have what's called a train the trainer program. So we can train you to train other people as well. And bring you in as part of our team. So anyway, let's show you what happens. So let me log in and show you real quick. Hopefully it'll log in okay. All right, so when I log in, I go into the course. Just want to show you what you're going to get. So here you're in the course. Let me go to module 1. So just want to show you what's in the program real quick. You also see down here, see this little blue? This is where you can click it, right? And you can ask questions. So here's where you can attach a thermal image picture, right? So I could click this, right? And I can go and click and add an image like you see this right here through this, and you can ask questions about it, and we can help you. Okay. You see, we have some students that are in here now. Okay, just already in this program. Down here is a yellow button. This is whatever you type in here. You click the yellow button, and it'll put it here. Okay, so this is so you can ongoing ask questions in the learning process. Okay, and we'll click the X and take it out. Okay, so that is right in your course. And by the way, if you're in our Fast Tracks programs, that's also the same way you ask questions. Everybody keeps using the comment feature, but that's called Fast Tracks Interact. That's what you want to use. Okay, so here's lesson one, talking about what is thermal imaging. Okay, you go down, you can ask questions here if you want or give comments, fine. This kind of just starts out, gives you an example of thermal imaging. We try to keep it short and sweet because I know people have an attention span that is limited. So, and also, I'm a big believer on making you read something to comprehend it rather than watching nothing but videos on it. I'm anal about that. I think there's something about the written word and reading it because I have such a problem with reading comprehension, just like you. And so, and many of you, when I read something, I'm like, I don't understand it. So I have to force myself to read it. And so that's what we do. We force you to read something to comprehend it, but you can always ask a question in the process. Okay. That's what we're trying to do. All right, so here's the lessons, and you see this is lesson. When you're done, click complete if you want. You don't want to click complete, that's fine, but all that does is check it off over here that you've completed it. That's all it does is check this off. You can come back and see it later. So that's lesson 1.1, and you go to lesson 1.2. Why use thermal imaging in electrical work? Again, here you see talking about section 7.4. We just looked at that earlier. Gives you always give you an example. And again, keeping it short and sweet so that you can move through this and reference it at any time without having to read 50 paragraphs or something. Short and sweet, folks. Okay. Now, we walk you through it, NFPA guidelines. So this is 1.4. Here you go. 70B. There you go. Making references. Okay. 70E. Proper arc flash. Examples. Okay. Short and sweet. We don't want to overwhelm you. Okay. Now, we have what's called key takeaways. And in the key takeaway here, this is just a kind of just what you should take away from this lesson. And we also have hands-on experiences. Here, hands-on experience, take a reading, loading. Here, a loading, use example of at least 40. So this is an example where you would just load up a circuit, take your bedroom circuit, plug in a hair dryer, and then go down and read the breaker in your panel and kind of do that type of a lesson. And we have all that, okay? And you can send your image to me personally, and I will give you feedback on your image and kind of help you walk you through your reading and what you got from your camera. And then we have a quiz. And here's the quiz, and you can start your quiz right here. Okay. All right. So I just want to give you a taste of that. But here are your modules. Look at here. And I'll zoom in on this so you can see a little bit better right here. Okay. Operating a thermal camera. We're talking about the H128, but it's going to apply to all your thermal cameras. Field actions, how to do it in the field. Specialized applications, motors, transformers, and beyond. Thermal imaging and safe boundaries. Okay. Interpreting load condition and duty cycling, thermal severity classifications and action criteria, when you need to react, when you don't cry wolf. We cover everything in here. Documentation and reporting standards, communicating findings with the customer, advanced techniques, integrated thermal imaging into preventative maintenance, thermal imaging, energy efficiency and cost savings to the client, case studies, real world applications, safety integration, professionalism and customer relations in thermal imaging, advanced troubleshooting, selling techniques. Okay, so there's 17 modules. Okay, and then we got what's called the grand course summary at the end. Okay, so you get down to that level. You get all the way down to the end, you'll have your course summary. Let's see here. Let's go open that up. and we got a module by module recap. And so here you're able to go down and you see kind of a summary of what was in each module. So at the end, I expect folks, and this is something we're doing new. I expect folks by the time you get through this, your brain is like mush. And we're going to be adding a module 18, a module 19. We're going to be continuing adding. And so the key thing is to always be able to give you a summary so that at the end you can go, okay, let me go over and see what I just learned as I do it, that type of thing. Okay. So that's kind of what we do as a recap. We also believe that in order to be able to do this, you've got to know how to sell. You've got to know how to sell a product. So we go over exactly how you identify the problem, invite the decision, work examples, service calls, how to do it, key phrases that you use on a call, what to say, what not to say, relevant standards, teaching analogy, all these kind of things. We try to make it as simple as possible in the program. Okay. And we're going to be, again, adding stuff to it as we go. All right. So here's example. I'll show you this module, which is module lesson 3. Okay. Understanding when you hear me talk about something like the absolute temperatures and you get the delta T, which is the temperature difference, how to read it, how to compare it, we break it down and I go out of my way to try to give you examples that you read it and you understand it. Because I have this fear that as a society, we're trying to look too much at a picture. We're trying to look too. Now, I will do what we call some videos in here that we're adding in once the certification course is here that we'll walk through. In fact, I'm going to do it in a seminar format on a big screen. And I will walk through some examples of some images and show you how to pick these apart. Okay. But until then, I think it's so important for me to convey it in a written form that when you read it, it makes sense. Then when you see pictures, kind of like we do in our courses, right? I always tell you in our courses that the videos are a supplement to the course material. Because if I can explain it to you well enough in a written form, be very descriptive that you get it, and then I show you an image or then I show you a video, then you will never forget it. You get what I'm saying? And that's just a teaching approach that I've used for decades now. And again, some people agree with that, some people don't. It's just how I do it. And I be honest with you, folks, I'm too old to change the way I do things. So again, I just like to keep pushing forward. There's so much information in here. Okay. We even have a lesson in here. Let me show you a lesson in here on right here, avoiding false alarm. Right. So I click on it. Right. So here, don't cry wolf. Okay. I think that's a one big problem in the thermal imaging industry is that it gives it a bad name because people don't understand how to use these devices. And it's not so much the quality of the device these days as it is the quality of the technician. Okay. So the goal is a thermal electrician, which is different than a master electrician and a journeyman electrician. A thermal electrician is an electrician, whether you're a master or journeyman, that has an extra on top level of knowledge, continual learning. And again, maybe you work for a big company and they don't have a thermal program. And you can explain to the company why they can add this. And maybe there are issues. I can tell you right now, one of the reasons that I have a job working for one of the largest manufacturers of wire and cable is because it was 15 years ago now, 14 years ago now, somewhere in there, I think 11 years, 12 years ago. Anyway, I found that there was wire that was breaking down. Plasticizer was dripping out of the conductors. The company was being sued. It was a big issue because they were blaming the wire and cable manufacturer. They said that they tested everything and they had data. Well, I was able to prove that they were wrong and their design was flawed. And guess what? It all went away. That's what turned into offering me a job working for the largest wire and cable manufacturer At the time, they weren't. So Encore was probably the second or third largest on building wire. Now, Encore Wire and Prism is the largest in the world, much larger than Southwire, larger than in Nextel, larger than all those other ones, Nexan, excuse me, because of their diversity. And they are definitely wiring cable specialists. Okay. They don't do tools, they don't do other things. So, and I'm not name dropping, I'm just saying they are the biggest in the world. But I would never have had a relationship with Daniel Jones and Encore Wire if I didn't solve a major problem for them. Okay. So at the end of the day, solving the problem was huge because it made $1 million, multi-million dollar lawsuits just go away. And look at the engineer and say, guess what? You made a mistake in your design. If I had done thermal imaging on that, it doesn't matter what they think they're reading. I could use a thermal camera and I can flat out record and tell them what I'm reading. Okay. Trust me, plasticizer on a thermoplastic product will not leach out plasticizer unless the conductor is being overloaded, it's overheating. Trust me, folks. You're not going to get plasticizer migration without them overloading it. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the overcurrent devices are going to trip, because in a lot of those facilities, they will oversize their overcurrent devices because of they're worried more about reliability and uptime, and they're not usually inspected at certain points, their maintenance team. So what happens is they become more volatile. And so that's why data centers today, I can tell you right now, every time we work with a data center, they are so anal. They want to know what's their uptime. They can't afford to be down. If they don't have a thermal imaging program in their facility, not just maintenance, but a program that's part of maintenance that is ongoing, then they're crazy. Because if they're so worried about this wire longevity and everything, then they better be worried about the effects of thermal heating and the terminations and how it's installed and torquing. And they better be aware of it. I'm just saying. Otherwise, they're going to, you remember what last month when the data centers went down in Northern Virginia? Okay. It caused what? What were those data centers? Amazon's all over the world. It was affected. You've got to have a program. Okay. And many people overlook the importance of thermal imaging. Okay. Okay. So anyway, so we cover all that in here, and I just think it's neat to be able to do that. And again, here you see that we talk about don't cry wolf. So again, you do AFCs versus AFCI, AFCI not versus the standard. Okay, you're looking at a range of how they're located in taking temperatures, routers, UPS chargers. I mean, there's so many things. Sun can raise, airflow can, reflection can change thing. All this type of stuff. We can find things that are fake spots. I see this all the time. People send me images and I look at it and they say, "Is this a problem?" And I go, "Well, this is not a problem because what you're really picking up is a reflection." And so that is not what we're trying to get. That is a very low emissivity, and you need to be focusing on things that are very high emissivity because you're going to get a more accurate reading. And even then, it doesn't have to be spot on perfect temperature reading in order to have a blazing potential problem that needs to be investigated, that type of thing. So anyway, I've created this program personally. I have gone through here and tried to add as much as I can. I encourage those that get into our program that have some knowledge to help be a part of this course. Add things that you recommend, include images. I will give you credit for the images that you submit. We'll give you credit. We want to make this the best thermal imaging certification program out there. My goal with this program is to create the definitive expert when it comes to thermal imaging for electricians, not a generalist. So when I think of somebody that becomes a thermal imaging specialist and they go through level 1, level 2, level 3, they are amazing, but they're a generalist. My goal is to focus electricians, electrical professionals to be that expert when it comes, because you know the aspects of electricity. You know what happens with heating and cycling and what happens in a sinusoidal waveform. You understand those things. You understand electrical safety. Now, what my goal is to build on top of that. Build on top of that and give you something else that helps you stand out, gives you a service that you can sell, whether it's residential, commercial, industrial, whether it's property, whether it's a maintenance program, whether it's a data center application, whatever it is, we're going to be dealing. We have a lesson or a module that's coming out soon that's going to be added here that is just dedicated to data centers. Just dedicated to data centers. Now, you might say, well, I don't work for a data center. Great. However, if you want to become a trainer in our program and train the trainer program, then what you can do is we will train you on how you could sell the program and train the maintenance people that work in the data center so they can use their electricians and you train them. Okay. And have the ability to certify them through our program. That's what we're working on because I learned from the CMECP thing. Folks, I learned from that. I cannot do everything. And God knows, David will tell you, many of them that are in the program will tell you, the CMECP is an amazing program. The only thing that has held it back, and Bill will tell you, we've had this conversation. The only thing that has held that program back from being massive across the country is me. I am not somebody who can focus on one thing alone. I do lots of things. Okay. I create courses. I create AI software. I'm always creating and I'm always trying to take electricians to the next level. That's my goal. I don't care about plumber. I don't care about HVAC guys, with all due respect. I don't care about anybody else but electricians. It's all I care about. And y'all know because many of you called me on the phone. I'm passionate about helping electricians. Look, but I'm also transparent. Do I make money selling courses? Yeah. Do I make a lot of money? No. Look at my pricing. You can go pay $1,000 for other people's programs. You can pay even more than that. And I am always giving you more, trying to give you more. And I'm not raising prices. I'm constantly giving more. So at the end of the day, I believe that there is a need because about 9 months ago, 8 to 9 months ago, a little bit before that, I was getting a lot of calls about, people, and I have through the years, but the thermal imaging people were upset. I had a very large manufacturer. What's up, Cray Cray? Glad to see you here. I had a large manufacturer contact me because they had a problem because their maintenance program was causing shutdowns all the time because they were doing thermal imaging scans. And they were doing it, documenting it. They were doing okay. The problem is they'd never find anything wrong. So I had them give me their images and I looked at it and I asked them to take some pictures of the same exact location, not through thermal imaging. And I found so many problems with what they were submitting and how they were doing it. And there is a right way and a wrong way to report something. It's called tactfulness. And we used to train this all the time. I'm excited to tell you that I had been a consultant at one point for NACHI. It's National Association of Certified Home Inspectors. I was the electrical guy for them. I did their video for them, and they still use that video. It's crazy, 20 years later. But at the end of the day, they haven't even changed that video in nearly 20 years. I don't know why they didn't reach out to me and say, Paul, fly out here, let's do another new video. But I mean, they know I would. I'd fly out there and help them. But at the end of the day, one of the things I notice is that people are shortcutting things. And there's no shortcut to electricians. There's no shortcutting to get that license. You earned it. So the knowledge that you can stack on it, and now if you're a CMECP, you've stacked onto it and you stand out amongst the crowd. Now, if you add on to it and you add on certified thermal electrician to that, you're just adding on to your credential. You going through a validation process. You are raising your game. You're offering additional services. And You can also offer your services, thermal imaging, to programs like big companies whose maybe their maintenance people don't have the expertise. And you can say, look, I'll offer the third party thermal imaging program. I'll come in, I'll show you how we set it up. I'll come in once a month, I'll scan your equipment, I'll give you a report, I'll take notes of differences, things like that. Here's what you have to do. Here's what equipment we need to have running. Here's what we need to put, the black um, uh, black body marks on it, things like that, if necessary, if it's high reflectivity. You create the program. That's up to you. I mean, I cannot make you get business. Interesting. I had a call from an electrician the other day. Great guy, and I was on the phone almost 2 hours with this guy. He's a new contractor, and he wanted to know how to grow his business. And he had lost a project. He had lost the job, and I asked him, and he was like, "What do I do? How do I do estimating? I need to. I don't want to lose jobs." And I'm like, "This is the first job he's really bid." And I'm like, "Whoa, you're just getting started. You're still wet behind the ears. You're going to lose some. You're going to win some. Don't fret it. You have to find out what your worth is. Okay, what are you worth? And you don't compromise. Your pricing is based on your burdens, your financial obligation." And then you create your margin of profit. And if you're going to supply material, what your markup is on the material. Okay. Once you establish that, then you can determine what your hourly rate would be to make sure that it covers all of your burden and expenses leveled across your company. So that you wonder why a Mr. Sparky company can come out and charge $300 for something that you say, "Oh, that's overpriced. I'm only charging $125." And you end up putting out there on the internet that they're overcharging you, that they're not overcharging. That just happens to be their price based on their burden. They have multiple employees, they have insurances that cover, they offer benefit packages. So yeah, some people can offer lower prices, but they don't have the same number of employees, right? So that's why you can't set your rate based. You have to set your pricing based on your needs and realize that you're not going to win every bid. Okay. And you say, "Well, I got to be competitive." Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Some of those and he had one job where the guy told him that when he gave him the price, that the guy actually didn't want to pay him after he'd already did the work. And I explained to him that he didn't do it right. And he needed to listen to my podcast I did the other day. I got 3 new podcasts out you need to listen to about running businesses. And I'm doing more of those to kind of help you electricians understand how to run a business, how to do your service calls, how to negotiate with a customer. Yes, it's a negotiation. And so anyway, I explained to him that he went about it all wrong. And how he could have turned that into a positive experience and got a 5-star review on Google or Yelp or whatever by offering a negotiation practice. Guys, I have my haters on here, but I can promise you everything that I have ever tried to create is to help an electrician. I got to make a living. You make a living. I make a living, but I can promise you I don't gouge people when I make a living. Okay. I don't. I charge a reasonable price for the education that I have learned. So when you charge somebody, you're not really charging them. You're charging them for your time and your experience. That's it. And the more that you can convey that to a customer, the more they're going to respect what you charge. Okay. Okay. All right. So I don't remember the episode. I think it's Master the NEC podcast. I think it's episode 37, 38, and 36 or somewhere right in there. Easiest way to listen to our podcast is go to mobile app, or you can go to fasttrackstube.com and click podcasts, and you'll see where it says all podcasts. Click that or click Master the NEC podcast. It'll be there. Or you can search for, yeah, I don't know. We're all over the place. Just search for Master the NEC podcast and you'll see the episode lists, that type of thing. But anyway, we're going to have more of those for contractors coming up in the future because, again, people want that. Okay. All right. What else should I talk about? That's it. I don't have anything else to say on today's episode. I'm excited about the thermal course because I think that more electricians should add this into their business profile. and it also is a selling point. Also, if I'm doing a service call and I'm done and I'm charged by the hour, and you can keep a customer from getting upset, right? If you were to pull away and leave an hour, yeah, you're making more money per hour based on you get paid for an hour and you only work for 30 minutes. You're thinking, boom, right? Well, no, I want to keep a customer happy. I always want to try to generate a 5-star review. If you're doing service work and you're not doing Google, Yelp, and Bing, and you're not listed for free in their business listings, and you're not actually using something like these to promote it on the job site and get that 5-star rating right away, then you're not doing it right if you're a service company. Today, people care more about the reviews. So word of mouth is gone digital. I use Yelp and Google and I use Bing. I use them all the time when I'm doing services and I go to businesses and I look at restaurants and I do it all the time. I look for the ratings. You need to cultivate those ratings, folks. Now, if all you do is contract work and you don't need it, well, you don't need it. But I'm an electrician. I believe service work is good money. Okay. And you get to tailor what you want to do. But anyway, enough of that. Hopefully, if you're interested in our program, it will be available. The certification program will be available soon. And thermalelectrician.com will be available soon. And it's, again, as always, I follow my own advice. It'll be on the .net and the .org as well. Okay. Follow my advice. If you're going to get a URL, a domain, make sure you always try to snag the big three. Always try to get the .com, the .net, and the .org. If you can get them, always get them. It's cheap, 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 cheap online real estate. I'm just saying. All right. Okay. One last thing I will do for you is, let's see if I can go to Fast Tracks Tube. Let me see real quick. Let me go to fasttrackstube.com. Let's see if this will come down right. Yeah, let's go here. Let's go real quick to lesson. Let's see if I can share this instead. Okay, so here's Fast Tracks 2, by the way, folks. So for those that are wondering, under the new series, see right here where it says series, click all series. And here you see the new series on swimming pools, spas, and hot tubs. This is the new series right here for 2026. For those that are members of Fast Tracks Tube, there you go, right? If you want to listen to podcasts, here's the podcast button. If you hover over it, you'll see there's a Master NEC podcast tab. You click it. And here you can see all the episodes. Here's episode 39, using QR codes and online review. Here's 38, price isn't the problem. And again, I'll zoom in so you can see this. And here's 37, top 10 right here. And I don't know what this. Will AI take my job? Here's the top 10 negotiating skills for electrical contractors right here. So anyway, that's where you can listen to the podcast there. Okay. Or you can listen to the ones that we put on here. You can click right here on all podcasts. Right. And now we're starting to put them in here as well. So you can listen to them straight from inside of Fast Tracks Tube if you want. Right here. So just click on, let's say this one. I'll click it. And then when you're here, all you got to do is click the play button. So we're integrating these now into the player. And you've got all these neat features. You can give us hearts, thumbs up, blah, 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 ratings, whatever you want to do. Save it for later, yada, yada, yada. You can watch it later, mark it for later. You can share it with other people. These are public right now. They're not private. They're public. Okay, so anybody can go here if they want to listen to it. Okay, it gives you a little summary down here. I'm going to click here. It'll show more. All that kind of good stuff, right? All right. So anyway, coffee hour, you can watch right here. See if I click this. That is today's show that you see we're watching right now. So you can always watch the show from here as well. See that? You can watch it right inside here. If you want to chat, you just click this chat button right here and you can chat as well. So I click chat button. It opens up this chat portal over here on the right. See, there you go. And do a chat. I can type it and go, hello world, right here. Click it and I'll click it. And then you'll see that right here. I'll share it on the screen. There you go. Hello world. All right. So anyway, there you go, folks. Always trying to add more and more and more and more stuff. Okay. Always trying to add more and more stuff to the program. All right, let's do some giveaways real quick before we get off today. I know I went a little longer than normal. Let's go on and get some people into the drawing. We'll do 9 drawings today. So do me a favor. Do me a favor. I want you to do hashtag win real quick. I'll give you a second to do hashtag win. Okay. So that you can get that in there. So hashtag WIN, let you get it on the drawing. So I'm going to do that. All of you that are watching, real quick, go to your text and do hashtag WIN for me. I'm just going to let you do that real quick. Maybe you've already done it. Okay. All right. So now we're going to spin the wheel and see what we get. Travis Spears. All right, Travis, you have 12-month subscription to Fast Tracks Tube. All you got to do is go over to Fast Tracks Tube. You'll see at the top of the screen where it talks about signing up, where you'll see where it says membership plans. Click on membership plans and then sign up for a free membership. Once you do that, email us at winner, WINNER, at fasttracksystem.com. And I will elevate you, or Jeff will elevate you to get you your 12-month of access. And you get to watch that spa series. There you go. Let's do it again. Also, the training videos for the infrared is going to be over on Fast Tracks Tube as well. It's going to have its own channel. Okay, we don't want to use YouTube. We want our own channel. That way we don't have commercials and stuff like that. All right. PXD Meacham. I have no idea who that is. I kind of think that's maybe Adam. I'm not sure. Might be, might not. But you're in the drawing for Trade Hog, which, by the way, I do have a list of those that won it last quarter. Jeff tells me we're almost done with that in order to create the ones that'll give you the free access for 12 months. We had to get with the developer that helped develop it because it was weird. We could charge, but even if we set one up for free, we had to pay for it. It was weird and it registered things wrong. So now we're working through that. So it should be ready. So don't worry. I haven't forgot who you are. We'll get you all set up. I haven't forgot you. I haven't forgot anyone. I keep record of everything, every drawing that we do. All right, let's do it again. Also, shout out to those over on TikTok. We don't answer questions on TikTok when we're streaming. Come over to our live stream. All right, Tim Matthew 5762. You are in the drawing for NEC grounding and bonding course. Okay, couple $100 course there. You're in the drawing for that. So again, when we do the drawing towards the end of December, then probably during our Christmas show, one we'll have at the Christmas time, that'd be cool. Maybe I'll dress up as Santa. I doubt it. But anyway, you're in the drawing for that. Congratulations for that. All right, last one. Let's see what we get. We're on time, about 9:30. So, man, the new show's about an hour and a half. All right, Beto B, you're in the drawing for the Ultimate Decision Coin. I'm sure all of you are familiar with those decision coins. This happens to be the CMECP coin that only available to CMECPs. But you're in the drawing for an Ultimate Decision Coin, which happens to be my favorite coin, which is I don't have one now because I gave it away to somebody. I got to make some more. That's the one where if you're having an argument with somebody, you can say, hey, let's flip a coin. Rather than being heads or tails, you've got a coin that says yes or no. And there you go. So it's the Ultimate Decision Coin. You're in the drawing for that. All right, let's take it back to me. All right, folks. hopefully you got something out of the day. Let you know what's coming. If you're interested in the thermal imaging course, look for information to come soon. A lot more information on that. You can now. I will warn you, if you want to be a certified thermal electrician, the course that's on our website today is not the one for certification. Maybe you don't care about being a certified thermal electrician. You just want to offer the service. Well, you can do the one it's on. Within the next day or two, the certification course will move over and actually be on the website as well, which will be there before it even starts on this website right here. So it's going to start there first. Okay. There you go. Okay. You might have, Dwayne, the first quarter. That's long gone, buddy. So, anyway, okay, all right. So, and I gave instructions for those that won how they can redeem it, and if they didn't follow the instructions, you don't get it. So again, it is what it is. All right, folks, that's it for today. Catch us next week. Next week we will be going back into calculations for dwellings, a single family dwelling. It's about time that we get back into that a little bit. But I'm going to show it both 2023, but I'm also going to talk a little bit about some changes in 2026 for the calculations. And now I'm going to show you how, when it's heat versus AC, for example, that now it's clear that we possibly were doing things previously that we didn't need to do because it's already figured in, but we had to go through that little exercise. So much easier now in the 2026 edition of the NEC, in my opinion. Okay. So we'll talk about all that next week. So make sure you book your calendar, mark it down. We'll catch you next week on a coffee hour. I know one time a week is not enough anymore. I miss it every day. It is what it is. Take care.